What is play? A process that is freely chosen, personally directed, and intrinsically motivated. I think there's another definition from a preschooler. Play is what I do when nobody tells me what to do. Hi, this is Rusty Keeler, and you're listening to the Play Nature Podcast, where we talk about play, nature, playing in nature, and the nature of play. I'm glad you're here. Let's have a listen. Hello. Rusty Keeler here, and I'm sitting next to one of my favorite creeks in Ithaca, New York, 6 Mile Creek. If you listen carefully, you can hear some water sounds. Maybe there'll be some bird sounds. And it's spring in upstate New York, so if you listen really carefully, you can hear the snow flurries coming down. Yep, but that's okay. We know spring's coming. I mean, it's here, but we get the back and forth. What is spring like where you are? What is autumn like? If you're in the southern hemisphere, it's autumn. So what's it like? What's happening? Yeah, well, I'm so glad you're listening, and I'm glad to be here with you. And this is episode 4. Yeah, we're not stopping. We're rolling here. We're rocking and rolling. And, the real mission is we're putting good things out in the world. You and I. Yeah. Nothing's going to stop us, right? Oh, look at that. Kingfishers. 2 kingfisher birds just flew by. They're some of my favorite birds. Okay. All right. So, yeah, anyway, I was saying we're putting good things out in the world. And in unique times, we can be unique also. And part of that is continuing to do our good work and what we believe in our core. So we want to just stay grounded in ourselves and our beliefs and our values and keep putting good things out, keep doing our work. So for me today with you, my work is, talking about play. And today's episode is, what is play? What is play? With the Play Nature Podcast, part of it is, what is the nature of play? What is play? And so that's what we're going to be diving into today. As always, at the end, I will answer some questions from you. And today's questions are, where can you find inexpensive hill slides? We love that natural playscape feature, the hill slide. So are there ways that you can get slides cheaply or freely? There sure are. And the other question is tree cookies. What are those? So, all right, so stay tuned for that. While, in the meantime, we will dive into what is play. And teacher Tom Hobson wrote a nice little blurb on the back of my Risky Play book, which is really a book about play. And he called me a theorist. Rusty's work, both as a theorist and designer, causes us to rethink what it means for a child to be free to play, really play. So he called me a theorist, and nobody's ever called me that before. But I like it. Yeah, and sitting next to a creek here will be a theorist. So today, I think we're going to dive into being a theorist, and I think that's more like having theories about things. So today you and I will be theorists as we theorize about play. What is play? And we'll go to, some far-reaching places in the universe to think about where play comes from. But I want to start with the definition, kind of the standard definition from the playwork profession. Playwork, a profession, and study is study of play and supporting play, advocating for play, and running adventure playgrounds and play mobiles, and really kind of this work that dedicates itself to play. for me, a lot of the Europeans, in play work, they've studied play for a long time. So they've done a lot of work, really fine-tuning definitions and fine-tuning play principles. And we'll meet some, in future episodes, we'll meet some play workers and really hear from their mouth. But I love their definition because I think it kind of sums it all up. And they say, play is a process that is freely chosen, personally directed, and intrinsically motivated. They go on and say that is, children and young people determine and control the content and intent of their play by following their own instincts, ideas, and interests in their own way for their own reasons. Yeah. So a process that is freely chosen, personally directed, and intrinsically motivated. I think there's another definition from a preschooler, I think teacher Tom talked about, where they say play is what I do when nobody tells me what to do. So that's interesting too. But this idea of, it's freely chosen. It's children are doing it. So it's child-led play. So I'm not really talking about adult-led things or sports things, that might border more on recreation. But I'm going to kind of talk about this natural, deeply wired part of us and part of children that is play, that's ancient, it's beyond humans. It's multi-species have play, this kind of flow of life. And I think that it's alive too. We think about children playing, think about different ages, whether it's children climbing trees or climbing play equipment or stirring a soup in a mud kitchen, doing small motor skills, building fairy huts, or drawing or painting, or imaginative play, dramatic play, or being on tricycles going speedily around tricycle tracks or down hills. It's all ages. It could be peekaboo with a baby. His play. Peekaboo. Peekaboo. Got your nose. Okay, that's a play. Adults playing with the young ones. And of course there's play for elders and for adults and for teens and for all ages. And, a lot of times with play outside adults, outside our circle maybe, I think it might be, quote, just play. That it's not serious. They might not take it seriously. I know a lot of play folks or educators might think they don't take it seriously. And yet, play is really the most serious thing in the world. You think about preschoolers pouring water. They have the seriousness of a research scientist, right? They are studying like water. What is water? How does it move? How does it pour? What happens when it hits the ground? What's it like in different materials? They are studying it. They're observing it, processing it. They're making connections. They're coming up with theories. They are like the great scientists, asking why things look the way they do. Why do they move the way they do? Why do they live the way they do? Who am I? That's what they're finding out through play. Who am I? Where am I? How does it all work? Buckminster Fuller, people I look up to, has inspired me through the years, kind of creator of the geodesic dome, inventor, futurist, said that playgrounds should be renamed research laboratories. He said, children aren't playing, they are discovering how the universe works. And I would agree with him. Because play is learning, and play is development. And, in this last year especially, I've been thinking a lot about, and I'm having conversations with folks like you, about this kind of difference between development, human development, and academics. And when are they learning? Which is learning? And I would say that play, this kind of spontaneous, spark of like life and curiosity is more important, especially at the younger ages, more important than the man-made educational academics. Now, man-made and woman-made, but in this case I'm saying man-made is a bad thing. So I can, if you're a woman, I'll leave you out of it. Yeah, so this idea of academics, they have this idea of like, we want to push it, farther. We want kids to read earlier. We want them to, learn math principles earlier. We want their letters. We want them to write. And they mean well, right? Those kind of strategies for boosting education, they mean well, but there's a time for everything. And especially in the early years, it's time to play. In the play, it's time because that is development. We are programmed to rise up and wonder about the world and start messing with it and learning about it and learning about ourselves and how to make our way in the world. And that's the foundation, right? That's the foundation of those future academic things, that children will get into or be subjected to. And so, I think about that learning, that the developmental learning through play. That's not man-made. That's programmed by the universe. Yeah, it's in our DNA. Like we are sprung with an innate sense of wonder, curiosity, like a clock. Like we're wound to progress step by step, stage by stage. And, we're checking out the physical, the sense world. We're building our bodies through play. Children are building their brains. And it is a programmed thing. Like we are wired for it. And so development, if it's starting in the womb, right? There's little bones being made in there. Little fingernails, little hearts, circulatory systems, brain, all that. Okay, that's starting in there. But when they're out of the womb, there's the whole progression of life that's growing and rising and, ultimately becoming an adult. So even babies, they are programmed, right, to want to move, to suddenly realize, oh, that hand belongs to me. How do I move it? How do I get my needs met? I want to reach out with that little hand and learn about the world. And I'm going to taste things. Think about babies tasting, right? They're putting everything in their mouth. And, there's a certain playful pleasure in sucking on a Duplo block, right? If I really think back, I can feel that. I can feel the Duplo block in my mouth as a pre-toddler, as some sort of a baby. What's that feel like? And that feels different than, these different things. So they're exploring the world. They're wired to explore the world. And our adult role is to, understand that or accept that, believe it, be a believer, and then support it and safeguard it. The atmosphere that the baby is in, the toddler is in, child is in, the atmosphere, what's happening around them, and then the environment itself. We move on to toddlers. We think about toddlers exploring their world. I often think about them, with the natural playscape and the outside world as like these little explorers, these little silent explorers. They're observing, walking up hills and walking down hills, digging in some sand, splashing some water. They're kind of learning the cause and effect of this world that they find themselves in. And there's even diabolical play. Is that one of the play patterns? Diabolical play, hear me out. For toddlers, they're studying everything, including what happens if I grab that teddy bear out of Susie's hand? What happens? They do it, and maybe Susie cries, or Susie hits them, or bites them, or, And then, we're always thinking about what's our adult role. So much of it, because the play is programmed, the play is happening naturally, our adult role is to just, step in, reinforce for toddlers some social norms, help them along as they're expanding out into their world. Preschoolers, now, you could say that's where the play really kicks in. It's happening all along, but that might be where it's really kicking in. And their brains are working so fast, making so many connections. We on the outside can theorize about what's going on, but truly, there's a million billion things going on in their brains, in their bodies, way more than we can comprehend. We can study it and theorize about it, but really, it's all happening. Like building a human being, it's happening. And the pattern is strong. The DNA is strong. So if children are playing in the sand, we can think, oh, yeah, they're playing in the sand. But really what's going on? Their body is processing. Their sensory, the senses, they're touching sand. What's it feel like? What is it like when water's in there? What's it like when I scoop? What's it like when I put a bucket? How heavy is that? What's my feel in my muscles? Or which muscles can I really lift this with? Or can I use two hands now with it? What happens if I throw it? Come on, and that's when the social norms come back in. But there's like a million things going on. Math, volume, physics, story, language, describing what's going on. So really, there's a dizzying array of things that are going on when young children are playing. For me, play for play's sake is it. I don't need to know all that stuff. There's so much, bodies, muscles, bones are being built when children are climbing, when children are swinging, brain things are going on, mind things are going on. Everything's being built and processed. And so, like I said, for me, play for play's sake is good enough. I want to build spaces that support all that stuff. And yet, we also need to be able to put those words on it. And we'll dive into that in future episodes. But, because we're believers in play, but we also need to help make other adults believers in play. So we need to use the right words as we're advocating. If it's for an elementary school, how we advocate for it. If it is in a preschool program, how do we advocate for it? If we're a parent, how do we advocate with another parent, with our co-parent? How do we advocate to parents if we're an educator about that this is the way children learn and grow, and we're supporting it? But then if we step back, what's play at its essence? Okay, so we know it's important. We know it's built in. We know it's programmed. Children are programmed to rise up and play and explore and experiment. But what is it at its essence? I say it's a spark of light, like art, the imagination, and it's infinite. Like play, the creative spark of the universe is infinite. Like music, like creativity. Yeah? That there is no end, and it keeps coming, and there's no end to children's ideas, because it is like the free spark. And, hear me out, I believe that is like the building block of the universe. I believe that play is that creative spark. It's a creative spirit. And it might be, I think, how God works. Whatever the word God means to you. But I think it's like trying out ideas. Playing with ideas. You gotta admit, in this world of ours, there seems to be a sense of fun out there. Duck-billed platypuses and all. But I think play is one of these building blocks of how things work, along with love, harmony, and beauty. And it's interesting because it is not just humans that play, that have this spirit, this spark. dogs, raccoons. Last year in Arizona, I watched 2 raccoons playfully roughhouse for 25 minutes. I have video. I'll show video sometime. Just play, goofing around, batting each other, and then, sitting next to each other. I've seen videos of turtles playing. I've seen videos of turtles playing with dogs. I've seen videos of snakes playing with a ball. So there's something in there. Like there is some aliveness inside of us and inside of life on this planet. We want to make way for it. And what's interesting, another part of this, it's all interesting, but one part is that in one sense it's limitless, right? This idea of like this, it's infinite, it keeps coming, it keeps rising up in its expression of creativity. And yet, at the same time, it seems to be happening according to a clear set of instructions, DNA instructions, to absorb and develop step by step, stage by stage. Infant, toddler, preschool, school age, teen, adult. Like, you can see it. So it's infinite and unpredictable, and yet on another level, it's totally predictable. It's our programming to prepare for life on this planet. Just like the human brain is programmed at a certain stage to learn language. Any language. I'm speaking English now, but there's a certain part of the brain, all of us, back when there was when we were wee ones, and there's a dog, in English it's a dog. There's a ball, in English it's ball. We're learning. There's mom, there's dad. But it's not because English is, we're ready for English. We are ready for language. And so our brain, things come online and we're ready for it. And we could be learning. If we were in Japan, we'd learn Japanese. China, Chinese. You get the idea. So it's like there is this universality of the flexibility. Like the flexibility of learning any language. And so that's the beauty also of play and its uniqueness. The brain absorbs and builds itself. It builds the person according to the environment that it's in according to its stimuli. Hopefully according to the love that it's surrounded in. And so all these predictable stages. I had a funny experience some years ago when my older son was younger. Now, I had kids later in life, and I'd been already decades knee-deep in natural playscape design and loose parts and adventure playgrounds way before they were born. And I've visited early childhood settings, all over the place. And so, I've been submerged in it. But then it was interesting to have my sons and my first son, suddenly I watched him go through these stages that I'd seen when I visited preschools and child care centers. And suddenly he was in these stages. And there was a Fire and Ice Festival here in Ithaca at the Ithaca Children's Garden. And we had squirt bottles with food coloring so he could squirt snow and stuff. And sure enough, here he is, 4 years old. And he couldn't help himself, right? Like any 4-year-old. Suddenly he was attracted to that. Like, what does water do? Squirting color in snow. Just like, boom. And I just remember just like stepping back and being like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So it's limitless, and yet there's a program for it. There's certain times that, just like the language, there's certain times that, boom, you want to squirt food coloring in snow. So that it's our job to kind of recognize that and support it, feed it. So again, we think about that kind of difference between this natural development, kind of this rising, awakening of the individual, the building, the growing, that through natural programming, versus that academics, which is kind of pushing information. It's kind of like man-made programming. And hey, you do it at the right time, could be perfect, right? Like handing a baton, between development and academics. It's like, that's right, the perfect time to learn to read. The perfect time to start to go out of the dreamy, imaginative world into the, learning abstract symbols from the adult world that represent things, on the written page. It can be a perfect time for it. But not too soon, right? Not too soon, and not too much, right? The balance has gotten tipped too much here in the United States. Common Core and all that kind of stuff. It's like it got tipped too much. Great. When it's time for academics, great. Do academics. But how about balance it, right? Balance it. Some free time, some downtime, some playtime. Elementary school agers need it too. And even in academics, we need a playful component, right? Fun, the sense of wonder, the love of learning. If it's push, 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 can't love it so much. But the world's amazing. There's so much to learn and wonder about. But what if it was fun? So I think it's knowing your age group and knowing what's appropriate when, right? Because we don't want to rush the natural system, right? That is play. The system, the brain, the body. It's all programmed to come online bit by bit. So let's trust it, right? We want to celebrate it. We want to understand. We want to make room for it. And that's kind of like our adult role, thinking about that. And that programming. I like that idea of programming ourselves. Letting children program themselves versus being programmed. So it's that environment that makes us who we are. And we're part of the children's environment. So we want to make space for the non-planned play, right? The non-man-made spaces and kind of the academics, right? You think about man-made, adult-made, scheduled activities, or over-academicized. Things that are too sanitary, too clean, too screeny. All the screens, that's all man-made. But if we think of the natural side of things, like play arises out of the child versus screens beaming at the child. And the academics force adult-led things versus the adult-led spirit of play and discovery. I think that play soothes the soul, play meets the soul, and play is our soul. This state of being. And that versus the clean screens of the adult world, play itself can be raw, organic, unplanned, spontaneous, messy, not serious, and yet totally serious. I think play is alive, it's flexible, changing. Play makes and play breaks. And basically my point is that we can honor play and that we adults can feed play. The environments that we create and the stuff we put in those environments and the loose support that we give children in those environments, and then us advocating for play. Yeah. So our job really is holding space for play and keeping the hounds of life at bay, away. Right? We got to protect it. Like a play worker Maybe that's our work. We got to create that space and hold that space. Hold the line. And this idea, it's not play in the outside world's mind. It's the pattern flow of childhood expressed in infinite ways and possibilities. All right. There's me rapping about play. Wrap it up, Rusty. And so the mantra really is time, space, and materials. We want to provide children with time, space, and materials for play. And here we go. I'll wrap it up. We'll get to those answers to those questions. What are tree cookies? But, hey, the podcast. The future episodes. So much to explore. With play, we'll dig through real science. Future episodes. I'll talk to real experts, not just theorists like me. We'll find the anthropology of play. We'll look at perspectives of play from other countries. I'll dive into that play work profession, etc., etc., etc. And I'll do some more theorizing too. How about? Yeah. Because really, when you really look at play, and all this these ideas kind of come from me, like spending time watching play, visiting centers and schools to help come up with ideas for the outdoor environment. I spend a lot of time watching the patterns of play. And, this stuff kind of becomes obvious, like, oh, it is spontaneous. And if I've been doing it for decades. And so 30 years ago when I was trying and watching children play and that spark happen and them pour water and watch what happens or dig in the sand, well, it keeps happening. Like really, childhood hasn't changed. The spark of the universe within the programming of our DNA, that hasn't changed. So let's keep meeting that and let's keep feeding it. And I have some homework for you. Yes, I do. If you are a parent and around your children, or if you're an educator around children, I want you to observe the play. And this time around, think of it as the universe speaking perfectly through the spirit of the child. Perfect harmony, perfect creation. And you can just be amazed and feed it. Feed that play. Feed that spark of the universe. It's hungry. It's hungry for more. So keep it going. Yeah. All right. So, now's the time for Q&A. Okay. Here is the first question. Any suggestions for a good place to cheaply source a slide to create a hill slide area? Okay, we all love the hill slide. If you don't know what a hill slide is, like an embankment slide, kind of a slide that's built into a hill. It's kind of nice because, you can be on the slide, and if you fall out of the slide, you're just falling on the hill. But it's also nice. Hills in general are great. And I've done hill slides, my whole natural place-based career, but I'm kind of getting to the place where I kind of like just doing the hills. Not the hill slide. But anyway, the hill slide itself, the slide itself. Now, on my website, I sell hill slides, but I sell the big beefy ones. So it kind of depends on your circumstance. Like, do you need a commercial grade big beefy one that's going to last for a long, long time? Okay, then you can go to my website. But you can also get things for free or cheap. And so if you're thinking about your own backyard for your children or a preschool, it kind of depends on how much traffic you're going to get. Could you get away with doing, instead of a big beefy commercial grade, could you do like a backyard grade? So a lot of times places will sell the big beefy commercial grade ones, but they'll also have the backyard ones. And so they're a little bit thinner and they're not made for tons and tons of kids, but they'll be fine for a hill slide. And especially if they're kind of like tucked really in the dirt, you got the earth helping to support them. So they could come from, you can buy those, hardware, the big box hardware stores sell backyard play equipment and then backyard fixtures. So you can often just buy a fairly inexpensive, slide that would go on a little backyard swing set kind of thing. So then you can just pull that, use it in your own backyard or your own hill. And I typically will build a little deck on top of the hill, and bolt the slide to the top of that little deck, so children can sit down and then slide. And then I usually have a metal footing at the base that can go in concrete. But also, for free, you could just start, asking around for, and looking around for places, people that the teenagers are probably not using that little backyard play structure anymore. And maybe people are getting rid of things, getting rid of their little swing sets in the backyard and getting rid of things. And so you could take those on. You can put an ad out. You can kind of put the word out you're looking for one. And those are fine. I would totally use those. I have used those on kind of the more lighter trafficked playgrounds or backyards. So you could totally just like salvage one of those things and use it for your little hill slide. And even if you had lots of, traffic and tons of kids and you feel like, well, maybe I need a commercial, you could experiment with the backyard, level, size, and see how it goes. Okay, tree cookies. What are those? Okay, I think in the last episode I was talking a lot about natural playscapes and different features and things. So, we can get trees, often we can get chunks of trees. If somebody's, has a tree that falls down their yard, a tree service place comes and cuts it up, gets rid of it, or city forester, they're taking down trees out of the downtowns. So, we can get stumps to sit on, logs to balance on, make retaining walls for sand pits and things like that. So those are big pieces of wood. But if you took a big branch and you chopped it into like 1-2 inch thick pieces, those are tree cookies. And so they are like outdoor blocks, building blocks. Yeah. So imagine like a 20-foot long branch that's like, as big as your leg. And so this branch, wood, you just saw it up into little pieces. And you can have 2-inch pieces, 4-inch pieces, 3-inch pieces, whatever. Kind of cut it all up like slicing bread. And then you have all these pieces and parts. And you can leave those out. And, different woods are better than others. Almost any wood will work. I guess I should say different woods will last longer than others. So hardwoods might last longer than softwoods like pine. And then there's even like natural rot-resistant woods like black locust that could last for a decade or more outside in all the elements. But, with the tree cookies, it almost doesn't matter. You just cut up a whole bunch of these things. Depending on the wood, most times it's not splintery on the edges, but if it is, you could have, so there's somebody sawing, you can have someone else with a power sander just sand those little edges down. And you don't really need to treat them. You don't really need to do anything. I'd say chop them up and just throw them out there in a corner and say yes to play. Yes to children building with them and see what happens. And if they break down and they turn to mulch, they turn to wood chips, you just get more because you realize how easy it is and how awesome it is once they're out there and the things that children can do. So it's like a natural, could be free, loose part for children's play. That spark of the universe. So, all right, there it was, episode 4. What is play? And I'd love to hear your theories and any questions you have or comments, send them to me at playnaturepodcast@gmail.com. All right. Have fun supporting the light of the universe through play. See you next time. All right. Thanks for listening. Do you have a comment or a question? Email me at playnaturepodcast@gmail.com. You know I like talking about this stuff. And maybe we could use your question on a future podcast episode. As always, I have some free goodies for you in the show notes, including my outdoor loose parts guide. Fun stuff in there. And so I wish you the best in your outdoor play adventures. And when it comes to adding nature to your yard, or loose parts, or saying yes to risky play, my favorite motto is dream big, start small, and never stop. Oh yeah. Woo 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 woo. Let's do it. All right. Have fun out there.